Hello everyone, good afternoon, welcome to Chat UTD. We're going to preview the Arsenal game, look at the managerial position at United and just talk about all things United, as always at this sort of time of the week. This is the first time this week that I feel that I've entertained the idea of Erik ten Hag leaving before the end of the season. I think there's different factions in the fan base. I think there's probably a majority would concede that ten Hag needs to go probably at the end of the season, although there's a concern about who replaces him. There's factions of the fan base who would say they staunchly support him. They want him to have another year. I think some of the logic behind that is flawed, but each person is, of course, is entitled to their opinion. And then there's some people who want him gone now, so certainly before the FA Cup final. I don't think the club will do it. I don't think the club will sack Erik ten Hag before the FA Cup final. I think there's little to no chance of that happening. But so this first bit is really an opinion piece as to what my opinion and weighing up that option. What would that entail if we were to get rid of him? First of all, the only way they would consider getting rid of him is if they've decided they're going to get rid of him at the end of the season anyway. If they haven't decided that, there's no way they're going to sack him before the end of the season, I don't think. If they've already decided he's going to get sacked, they then might have to say, okay, is this a decision we need to act on sooner? And they would have to look at with what purpose and who is available and whoever could come in, what's their remit, what are they coming in to achieve? Because we have 3 completely meaningless games in the Premier League. We could potentially have European football. I don't know how important Conference League or Europa League football is to the club. Financially, it would give them a boost, but I don't know if it's game changing. So are we talking about winning the FA Cup then? Is that what we would sack him for, so that someone could come in and win the FA Cup? Again, who would that be? I think if it was going to happen, it needed to have happened by now. For someone to come in with this amount of time left, it's very difficult for them to make any meaningful impact. Ralph Rangnick came in and had 6 months at United, maybe even a bit longer, and we got a 30-minute bounce. And after that, the players stopped doing what he asked them to do. So this group of players, some of them were there when Rangnick was there. I don't think they are easily inspired by anybody. So what are the options? One of the options is probably Steve McLaren, as John, who's one of my regular contributors in terms of comments, mentioned the other day in a comment on my video that he thought Steve McLaren should maybe take the reins for the rest of the season. Let's look at him. Steve McLaren gets a really bad rep because of the England thing, the Wally with the brolly. For me, he's one of the 2 best assistant managers United have ever had, him and Carlos Queiroz. Certainly in my lifetime. In 98-99 season, he came in partway through and we didn't lose a game in any competition after he came in. You can call that coincidence, but I think that indicates impact. After Brian Kidd left and went to Blackburn to be the manager, we won 3 league titles in a row while he was our assistant manager, and after he left we finished 3rd. Again, you can call it coincidence, I don't know. With Middlesbrough, he won the League Cup and he got them to a European final. That's Middlesbrough. It's some achievement, that. And then obviously he went to England, and the Wally with the brolly thing, not getting the best out of England, becoming ridiculed by the media, that's not just him. That's happened to some really good managers down the years. Graham Taylor was a very good club manager in England, whether people remember it that way or not, he was. And it destroyed him, being the manager of England. It nearly destroyed Bobby Robson until the World Cup 1990. Venables left under a bit of a cloud. Glenn Hoddle's reputation was in tatters after he left. Fabio Capello, of course, was one of the great club managers of his generation. So he's in good company, Steve McLaren. He obviously, I think it was FC21 he went to in Holland, and he did that stupid Dutch accent when he was talking to the media, and he started to become a little bit of a figure of fun to the press and the media, and he faded into the background again. He became a coach, which is probably his best. I think it's best serves his attributes, and he's come back as an assistant with United, and I was really happy when he came back because I've got really high regard for him as an assistant manager or as a coach within a coaching team. It would be easy to do, as of course he's already there. But I read or heard something. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was so I can't cite the source. But a week or so ago, that said that if Steve McLaren was doing a lot of coaching at United, we wouldn't be seeing these results. So what that person was indicating was he's probably not having much influence on things. It doesn't look like a team coached by Steve McLaren. So, given that it's a big, I don't know, it's not necessarily true, so it might be a bit of a big leap, but if he hasn't got a lot of influence and then he's the manager, he's someone from within a failing system, I don't know if that would really inspire this group of players. I'm not sure what presence he's got, what authority he's got, and really, is he the type of person to go head to head with Pep Guardiola in the FA Cup final? Maybe not. But then you could argue neither so with Ten Hag, I suppose. And the other options, inverted commas really, because we don't know, seem to be just made up by the media and social media, and they seem to be Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now, Ineos, if they were to pull the plug, and as I say, I don't think for a second they're going to, but if they were, maybe they've got another person in mind. Maybe they've thought this through. Maybe they could bring someone who they were thinking of bringing in anyway next season. I don't know, but I don't know who that would be. But let's look at the Solskjaer thing, and it's hypothetical and I'm speculative as well. But Solskjaer, to come in for 3 games. One, there's some players there that this season he's spoken about, not directly, but he's implied that players aren't of a mentality to play for Man United. A lot of them are there in the squad now that he's talking about. He's not got his coaches around him, and I think time has been very kind to the coaches that were with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because of what they've done, and it makes it look like perhaps he was quite reliant on them. He's not had a job since then in professional football, or certainly high-level professional football, and they've gone on and done well, both of them, Carrick and McKenna, and obviously they wouldn't be available. And I also think, as much as he's got a good record against Pep Guardiola and Man City, in latter stages of competitions he didn't do very well with United. They reached their limit. He got to the semi-final of the League Cup twice. He got to the final of the Europa League and he got to the semi-final of the FA Cup and they lost all of them. So, not a great record. And again, 3 games is not long enough. I don't think it is long enough to make an impression. Jose Mourinho is interesting. When I first thought about him, I thought there's no way he'd come to United for 3 or 4 games. But then with his ego, with the carrot of winning the FA Cup dangling in the distance, maybe he would. Maybe he'd think he'd come in and celebrate it as his own achievement, when really he's played no part in it other than the final, but he'd be certainly counting it on his honours list. Could he, through pure shithousery, win an FA Cup final with Man United? Yeah, absolutely. Would it be a fun ride for a few weeks? Probably. But I said, I don't know, I'd have to have a look, but I think it was sort of February time, maybe even before that, when his name was mentioned as being linked to, or I think there's a story about him wanting to come back to United and he had unfinished business that dated way a few months ago. I said then, as an interim for the rest of the season at that point, with about half the season to go, or maybe a little bit less than half the season to go, I can see why that would work if we wanted to win the FA Cup. And maybe get us into Europe. I didn't think it'd be good enough to get us into the Champions League. To do it now it's very difficult for anyone to come in with the amount of time that's left and make an impact on these players. And I say these players because I think they've down to, I don't think they've down tools, because I've actually said before, I don't think they have. I don't think they've down tools. I just think they've given up because of their mentality. They're not good enough, and I think there is a difference, as I've explained in other videos before. So I'm correcting myself on that. They're not down tools, but they've switched off, and it's really difficult to switch back on again once you've switched off. And even Jose Mourinho would struggle with that because he's impatient, intolerant, grumpy old manager who is probably a bit of a throwback. And not to forget, there aren't many, but there's a couple of players in there that he didn't get on very well with when he was here last time. So again, I don't think it'll happen. And then other left field options, Roy Keane, Jesus. I think if Roy Keane came in, there'd be um, there'd be headlines like you've never seen before about leaks coming from the dressing room of like him having Rashford by the throat against the wall of the dressing room and stuff. It'd be great, it'd be brilliant, but it'd be carnage, and I don't think he'd do it. And you've got to look at variations of like the class of '92. Could they come in and do something? And it's all very fanciful and speculative. I think the club would look at it that as a, not that they owe anyone any favours. We're not a charity, but Erik ten Hag's got us to the FA Cup final. I think if he wasn't in the FA Cup final, I think he'd be sacked by now. I really do. Even Steve Howson, who for me is a top red, said the other day, a serious club would sack Ten Hag after Monday night. I don't think you can really disagree with him. Real Madrid wouldn't care if they were in a Copa del Rey final and there was 3 games to go and we reached the low that we reached on Monday night. They wouldn't give 2 hoots about that. They'd sack the manager and bring a youth coach in or whatever. They'd do what they need to do because of the principles of the club. We wouldn't do that because we don't have very high standards, but also we've got an in-between situation where the people that have come to take over the football side of the club are not really in possession of all the key people that are going to make the decisions yet. So it's Jean-Claude Blanc's there, as I mentioned in the video the other day, and I think that he could probably have the power to pull the trigger. So I think that if we weren't in the FA Cup final, I think he probably would have gone by now. But we are in the FA Cup final. I think as a gentleman's agreement almost, you would let him see it through. He's got us all the way to the final. We beat Liverpool in the quarterfinal. But with every game, it becomes harder and harder to not talk about it because United are an absolutely hideous joke of a team. And I was prepared to kind of be quite, well, not prepared, I was quite pragmatic about Ten Hag, not one way or the other, like, oh my God, get him out, or I 100% back him. I was somewhere in the middle, and over the Coventry game was the tipping point for me. And I'm not, as I said before, I've probably changed over the last few years. I've probably become a bit more chilled out about things, believe it or not. But I'm not going to be shouting for his head. But in the same respect, you look at all the stuff I've said before, the same things just keep happening over and over again. He doesn't have any ability to change it. He's not a problem solver. Like I said the other day, you find out about a leader when they face adversity. He's facing adversity and he's performing as badly as you can perform in adversity. And okay, he is facing adversity, both with the form, the character of the players, injuries, etc. But when you're at Man United, that's par for the course and you've got to be able to show you can do it. And he isn't able to do it. Is he capable of getting a result against Man City at Wembley? At the moment, I can hear John laughing through the screen if he's watching. You say, Jesus Christ, where would you find any argument to say that he is? So I'm not going to try and kid people or sugarcoat it. But I always maintain about the FA Cup final, it's 11 men v 11 men. I don't think City are that good. I think you can get at them if you can string even more than 3 or 4 passes together. I think if you've got pace up front, which Rashford is quick. I don't think he's good enough to finish it off, unfortunately, but he's very quick. Anthony, maybe not. Garnacho's not slow. But I think we can hurt City. Not getting into the minutiae of it, we can hurt them. And I had a hunch up until probably recently that I just, for some reason, think we could do something in that final. But with every game that passes by, you just think, how on earth is this group under this manager going to even compete in this game? On the talk of Tuchel, I did it at the end of a video last Friday evening. Ineos have said that Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth are going to kind of set the culture of the club, and I think probably Jean-Claude Blanc's in that as well, and that they as an entity are going to set the culture of the club, the style of play, etc. And the manager is going to have to come in and execute that. So they've presented that as a manifesto really to the fans. That's what's going to be happening, whether you like it or not. That's where it's going to go. Thomas Tuchel don't fit that. So if you've got a manifesto, if you've got an ethos, if you've got a culture, if you've got something that you're presenting to the fans, then go and stick by it. Don't just go and get somebody because they're available and they've got a half decent CV. That's what the Glazers would do. It's lazy. It's boring. I have no interest in seeing Thomas Tuchel as Man United's manager. I would be completely switched off if he came in. I don't rate him as an option for United. And even if I did rate him as a manager, I'd say, you know what, Ineos are still going against their ethos. They're supposed to be, as I say, we want someone who's going to come and fit what we want, our style of play, our way of doing things. He's a control freak. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing at some clubs, but with this situation, how on earth is that a fit? It's not. It's a boring Glazer appointment. I'd far more prefer them to go for Thiago Motta, because it's innovative and it's interesting and it's someone new and it's someone different and it's someone exciting and it's someone who hasn't been around the block 5,000 times and scarred by the game, and hopefully someone that can make his reputation at Old Trafford. Zidane's different because Zidane is Zidane, but Tuchel just doesn't do it for me at all. And I'm not judging it on the fact that he got knocked out against Real Madrid with 2 minutes to go. They were winning and they lost. That's nothing to do with it. That would be ridiculous. I'm not judging it on that. I just don't warm to the fella at all. I don't want him to be United's manager. So if he's a long-term option, as I say, it's much more of the same that we've had over the last few years. That will be a rinse and repeat system. It will be, you'll do all right to start with. You'll get a bit of a tune out of the players because we're not going to have the clear out we need, I don't think. They'll respond to him, and then within 2 years we're going to get all the same stuff that we've had before. I think if you go to left field and you get someone innovative, you clear the squad out, you do all of those things together, you with one foul swoop, you've probably cleared half the problem, and then you start to build again. That's what needs to happen at Old Trafford. It needs gutting so that then it can be built back up. We can't have half measures. It's like the stadium. I've said before, the stadium's a metaphor for the club. I don't want the stadium to be knocked down, but if people are saying, experts are saying that's probably the best thing to do, then okay, you knock the stadium down, you build it back up again. That is a metaphor for United as a club, symbolically. That's what we need to do within this infrastructure. Everybody needs to go. So they've started that with the infrastructure, with the people that they've already got rid of in terms of in senior executive and director type positions, between the board and the football, and actually board members as well. The coaching staff need taken out. The playing staff need taken out. The ground needs completely redeveloping, knocking down, whatever. The training ground needs that. They're talking about sweeping the offices at the moment and looking at the state of people's desks. That it's wholesale, and it needs to be wholesale. The only thing, like I said the other day, that's good at Man United is the youth system. And even that, you've always got to keep evolving it and keep looking for ways to improve. But you don't want to stand still because no one else is standing still. But that's the only area we can have any pride in. Everything else is knackered. And they need to gut it completely and start again. Not, we'll get rid of 3 this summer and we'll get rid of maybe 2 or 3 the summer after that. No. Just go for it. Just wipe the slate clean. Bring in a manager who you want, who does fit your ethos. Please God, not Thomas Tuchel. And then go, right, this is a rebuild. This is a proper rebuild. If we finish 6th or 7th next season, and at the end of the season we start to show signs of playing some decent football, we have a good cup run, you can see what's happening. No one will have a problem with that. There's some people cheering United off the pitch after they've been beat 4-0 by Crystal Palace. So they're not going to have a problem with a brand new slate. No chance. We've pissed around, we've tried to do it slowly, we've tried to do it incrementally. It doesn't work. This needs gutting. Arsenal on Sunday, I mean, Jesus, what do I know? I said before the Crystal Palace game I thought we'd win 2-1. But I don't think 2-1's an unrealistic result away at Crystal Palace. I really don't, even with those injuries. So that's why 4-0 for me. Well, we've got injuries, so what do you expect to happen? Well, I don't expect 4-0 against Crystal Palace. Absolute crap. So, Jesus, what do I know about what's going to happen on Sunday? I don't know. Genuinely, I haven't got a clue. I think the consensus would be Arsenal will come and absolutely give us a good hiding. But I don't know. I'm not sure that'll happen. I think we could be in the game. I think we could get a draw. based on nothing but the fact that this team is bloody bipolar. You know, sometimes they can just turn up. So, I'm never one to kind of go, well, if Arsenal win, City will have less chance of winning the league. I don't care about City. I don't really care about Arsenal. Would I prefer Arsenal to win the league ahead of City? Obviously, I would. But United got nothing to play for, so it's kind of a no-lose situation. If we do all right and play well, it might give us a little bit of confidence. If we get something out of the game, great. If Arsenal win as expected, hopefully it does dent City's title chances. But where we are right now is just a sobering reminder of the state of the club in general. We are where we should be. We're not good enough in any aspect of our football club bar the youth system. And there's so much that needs to change. So, to put it back to anyone that's watching, what do you think? So John said Steve McLaren. Anyone else? What do you think? Like who could come in and do a job for 3 or 4 games? I personally can't particularly think of anybody. I think of the options that I'm hearing, I would go Mourinho just because of his shithousery, and because he's such an egomaniac. He would do it for him, not for United. But if we benefit from that, then great. But I don't think the club will do it. Glazers out.